Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of still unnamed podcast-ish conversations that we have here with these wonderful people. I guess that you might already recall some of us, at least, but let's start with short round of introduction. I'll start. My name is Oleksandr Leushchenko. I'm an engineer manager at Tide. Majid, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Alexander. So my name is Majid. I'm a Flutter GDE and also a mobile security nerd. Someone mentioned it in this call right now. I would like to repeat that. I'm also a
You
mobile
stole this
security.
title.
Sorry, Majid. I'm Tomáš Soukal, senior mobile security developer, product owner of Talsec RASP SDK. My work focuses on app hardening, mobile security. I'm passionate about helping developers and businesses to protect their apps, their client data. And when I'm not coding, I'm either running marathons or dancing. So that's me.
Really nice. And I'm sure that when you are not dancing or running marathons, from time to time, you write articles. And probably we may discuss today one of the articles that you wrote, and it's about screen capture protection. So, for folks unfamiliar with your article, maybe you can give a brief summary of what's there.
Yeah. Okay, so my article is for developers who need to protect their applications from being screenshotted, screen recorded, or being subject of phishing attacks where remote access tools are involved. So this is basically for every Android and iOS developer, and the core idea is rather simple. Some information in mobile apps should be for your eyes only. Screenshots and recordings can easily leak sensitive data. Think about account balances, your passwords, private messages, and, for example, health reports. So by blocking these, you dramatically can reduce risk of data exposure or like accidentally leaking something you didn't actually want to share with the world. So that's why I made this article. I think that it's really practical to have the ability to decide on yourself if you need it and apply it at the right time. I think that is brings a lot of value to developers who
Yeah.
want to help their users.
That makes a lot of sense. Though now I'm a bit paranoid because should I implement this protection? Should I care about sensitive stuff in my application? Things about banking info and private health records that you mentioned. Like, clearly, one quick screenshot can ruin some my business, my reputation as an engineer. But obviously, not every application needs this level of defense. In your opinion, which kinds of applications should absolutely implement screen capture protection, and for which ones that might be less relevant?
I would say that it's not really true that not every application needs this kind of
Hmm?
protection because nowadays almost every application comes with sign-in screen and some paywall where you enter some credit card information. So these two places in your application definitely benefit from protection. It's really common technology, and I think that, of course, as I mentioned, those account balances, yes, financial sector is really thriving for such technology. Mostly fintech application will be definitely interested to acquire such kind of protection. But as I said, healthcare or some enterprise applications, maybe messaging applications like in WhatsApp, where you have your private messages in a separate folder, you definitely don't want to be able to even screenshot a view of this application at the moment you have something sensitive on your screen. So I think that it's actually quite common to have this need to hide something from being even accidentally screenshotted or screen recorded.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Though I can imagine that for some applications, like for example, let's imagine that we are creating a chat application. I might want to make a screenshot just for myself, not to forget some messages from the conversation there. So I'm sure that not every business would appreciate having this feature. So how can engineers make a compelling case to business folks to prioritize this functionality? And should them do that?
That's a tough one. Like explaining this value to stakeholders is, yeah, you're right, quite complex and hard for us engineers. But I think that most like managers will understand the need to protect like privacy of their users against being accidentally somehow exfiltrated. Or I feel that even there are some regulations nowadays such kind of protection. And it's for me, it's quite similar area as, for example, those password fields where you have hidden characters behind asterisks or just some big bold circles. So that's the area where you can argument that there really is need for such a technology. And the really case might be those remote access tools where attackers like to use like AnyDesk or TeamViewer, and attackers use these technologies to try to convince a victim that they are some authority like police or something like that, and victim is unaware of that. And thanks to these remote access tools, such kind of attackers are able to get and into application and manipulate things. So when you apply screen blocking, you will help users even in such like complicated cases where there is no other line of defense possible at the moment.
And you mentioned some regulations and even provided an example with TeamViewer. Well, you work at Talsec, in the company full of mobile security nerds. Have any of you, or maybe you personally, encountered any real world example from your experience there where lack of screen capture protection lead to some data leaks? Or is it rather a theoretic problem?
I actually don't have direct experience and I can't share confidential information from
For sure.
client
I was
incidents.
expecting that you would tell me NDA. And that's
Yes, that's the universal answer. But let's say that I highly believe that this happened a lot of times. And if application had such protection active at the moment, it would inevitably be million times better for the victim and for with business accidentally leaking something.
Alrighty, yeah, that makes sense. Your article focuses on Talsec's solution, like Talsec's protection, but are there any built-in tools or OS level protections that developers can use out of box without adding any SDKs?
Developers can definitely use out of the box password fields, or I'm myself mostly Android developer, so I know that there is a flag secure called constant you can set on a view, which will become then hidden and protected against screenshots. I think Android platform comes with a lot of options, and there are similar alternatives in the iOS world as well. So I think that developers don't have to stick with our solution, but they can go their own way. And I actually think that learning these concepts and applying them themselves gives you like better visibility and better understanding of what you are doing actually. If you opt free solution we provide in free rasp, you will get out of the box really nice experience, simple API, just turn off, turn on. It works out of the box, gives you reactions, gives you logging, you have data. But if you decide to go and do the hard work yourself, writing native code and everything, I think it's still feasible. And I think that it's relatively doable for smaller teams to acquire this kind of protection. So I think that you can choose, and both approaches are totally fine as long as the goal is reached, and that is user privacy and security of your mobile application.
Should I implement both to make my application 100% secure?
I think there might be some overlaps, and I haven't actually tested how would it behave if you combined it. But I think that it would actually work and didn't cause any issues because the underlying technology we use is also depending partially on this system APIs and the system tools you would use. So I think that in the end it would merge together and work good.
Yep. From your article, I know that some APIs were introduced in latest Android versions. So how should developers handle older Android versions where these APIs aren't available, or just use free RASP and it will just handle everything for you?
You're right that some of these features are available only on latest Android and iOS. And in general, I think the Flex Secure flag was available on Android for ages. So completely hiding screen content was available for a very long time. I would track it probably to Android 4 or 5, I believe. On iOS, the situation is a little bit more complicated because Apple's approach to screenshots and screen recording was quite different, and Apple didn't provide any API to block these for a long time. We come out with our own secret sauce, let's call it like that, allows us to protect that. So on Android, since Android 14 and Android 15, so like last 2 years, we have availability to detect that screenshot or screen recording happened. So Android's definitely moving towards privacy oriented people and giving us more options, and I find it really great.
Yeah. So you mentioned Android is the case, iOS is the case, and seems like we need to go really low level with native APIs to integrate everything. What should we cross-platform engineers do here? How smooth is the integration of Talsec, block screen capture, or other things? Like, do I really need to go that low level, or maybe it's just plug and play SDK?
I have a great thing for you, and that is that if you opt for our SDKs, they work cross-platform. You just integrate it in your project, whether it's Flutter, React Native, Capacitor, Cordova, or whatever else, and it will work out of the box. So our SDKs for cross-platforms are covering all these features. I think that you can try it. I actually prepared a small video. I prepared a demonstration application that I written in Flutter, and sorry for that, I'm not Flutter developer. I used ChatGPT to code this application, so it was like a vibe coding. So you can see that I can just screenshot, and you will see that screenshot was detected by this simple application. Of course, in the real world, you wouldn't expose this, probably would just somehow process it in your business logic or warn user differently. And if I turn now screen recording, you can see that the screen recording was detected, as I said. And the third option I wanted to present on this video is to block screen capture. So if I do the screenshot, you will see it was blank or black. So nothing leaked and your UI was protected. So I hope you like this small demo.
Nice. Kudos for vibe coding and for making a Flutter application the best framework for cross-platform development.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have a question. Would it behave the same on iOS?
Yes, it would behave the same way. Actually, there is a small difference, which we will like iron out next week with a new free Raspberries, because The new trick I talked about for iOS and screen blocking on iOS is still in our labs, and we are just pushing it to the production. But next release, which will be FreeRASP 16, will come with this new protection enabled out of the box, and it will behave just the same, complete parity between all platforms, whatever framework you use.
Amazing. Yeah, because I know that in my one of my previous projects, we struggled to achieve the same behavior there on iOS. It was possible to get to be notified when screenshot was made, but you could not do anything with that. Like screenshot was already captured, and that's it. So
Yes. It's weird system iOS where you get notification that something happened only after it happened. Can't do anything about it. Yes. So that's why we decided to implement the solution for iOS so it can block right away. Nothing gets leaked.
So in one of my previous projects, when we needed to implement the same feature parity on Android and iOS, we had to wrap the whole iOS application into text field and make it secure. And I wonder whether that's the same approach that you used at Talsec, or it's NDA and you cannot really tell us.
I actually don't know precisely how we implemented this. This was research led by Tomáš
Okay. I would
Soukal,
say the
who
same.
wrote with us last time. So I can't say much more about it, but it works really great.
Fair, fair. We will
Yeah,
test it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
please do it.
I have one question for you. In your article, you started with the James Bond movie and the principle of for your eyes only. I actually like this analogy. They started with that, so I like this. And I think you mentioned about this where this screen protection can be helpful and so on in the beginning. But if you again refer to your article to these principles, do you remember them? If you want to repeat them again, at least those who have not read the article, they get a glimpse of what are those few common mobile scenarios that you mentioned under the for your eyes only principles.
Sure, yeah. So the core principles I highlighted are to hide everything if you need it and protect everything valuable from eyes that shouldn't see that. Another principle I really like is view but don't share. It's in cases where you have some, for example, images or something that you might unintentionally share with broader world by screenshots. So you might decide for this principle if you are, for example, implementing gallery-like screen in your application. Fourth principle, the leakage awareness. It's about notifying actually users on the other end that someone screenshotted their, for example, some short-lived content that was not expected to be kept for much longer. That's, for example, if someone, for example, screenshots some Instagram story or something in this area that you wouldn't expect to be screenshotted. The fourth is combat social engineering. I talked about this principle a lot in our talk. That's actually a serious threat for fintech sector where attackers try to impose some threats on victims and claim themselves to be some authority like some bank officer, policeman, or other authority that might threaten a victim. And the fifth one, penetration testing. That's again a similar area where a lot of time penetration testers try these scenarios where they simulate this attack with remote access tools. And if your application needs to pass some serious penetration testing, I'll bet that this will be one of scenarios that will be tested and that they will require you to implement and protect against.
That's good. Thank you very much. I think everyone who has not read the article, we encourage you to definitely check out the links and take a look. So your examples are in Android in this article, but we talked about it right now. So like it's not limited to Android, definitely. Like even if you're doing the cross-platform, Flutter, React Native, whatever, you still can benefit from reading the article. So yeah, we would definitely encourage that.
Yes, you will find guides for every cross-platform technology, Flutter, React Native in free Rust docs.
Absolutely. Back to you, Alexander.
Frankly speaking, I think that we should wrap up somewhere here already. And once again, Tomáš, thank you so much for this article and thanks for this conversation. I hope that we'll have many more similar conversations with you because I've seen some other articles from you too. So probably see you next time.
It was my pleasure,
Thank you.
Alexander. You too. And looking forward. See you.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.